Hi, welcome back to my reload bench. A few hours ago I was having a conversation with Travis P11 and AWAG 1000 about reloading. We were discussing scales and we ended up talking about the Lee Perfect powder measure. So I was going through a few videos that I had shot previously, and I found one that I had done on my RCBS 505 scale. This is a analog beam scale, and I bought it used at a gun show, and it comes in really handy. I prefer an electronic scale. I prefer a digital readout, but I use this as a backup in case my digital scale has an issue, and as a matter of fact, it did. So my first digital scale was the Hornady GS 1500. This thing made it about 3 years, and then it just crapped out. So I was still doing some reloading, and there's no stores in my area where I can get a digital reloading scale. I'd have to order it or drive a little bit further. So I went right back to my backup beam scale, and everything was fine until I went to Cabela's and got this, which is the G2 1500 electronic scale. This scale I like a little bit better than the GS 1500 because the display doesn't time out as quickly. What I don't like about it so far is if you pick it up, the little calibration weight falls out of there. I like that being separate. I should probably just store this somewhere, but otherwise it's okay so far for the price. I mean, it was around $30, and I don't consider that too bad of a price for a small scale. So I'm glad I've got the backup beam scale. During the video, I threw a powder charge with the Lee Perfect powder measure to just kind of show how you use the scale to verify the charge. So you've got a stem right here that is adjustable. There's a nut here. It's knurled to make it easy to grab and spin, and you adjust the stem. So out is more and in is less, and it's got little lines on there to let you know where you're at. And then so you dial it in, you raise and lower the arm. When you lower it, it'll drop the charge, and then you go weigh it. If you've got too much, you adjusted it. Too little, you adjust it, and you go back and forth until you get it about right. Now what I do is I go ahead and cycle it a few times. On average, it's about 5 times every time I adjust it, and that's because the powder gets stuck here in this body, and it may not be consistent the first couple times you throw it. So you want to feed it through so that it has a consistent amount coming out. And I mean, it's fairly simple to work. The whole setup comes in a small box, and it's just the powder measure, the body, and the stand. This is just a scrap piece of plastic that I attach it to with 2 self-drilling sheet metal screws. It's fairly simple. When you put the powder in, you just dump it in there. You give it a twist, and that allows the powder to flow down there. When you're all done and you've still got powder left over and you want to dump it back into the bottle, you give it a twist and you pull it out, and it won't fall through, and you simply dump it. There'll be some powder left in there, and what you can do is just cycle the arm up and down and collect it in a pan, dump it in the top, and you can reuse your powder. You don't want to leave powder in here overnight or for a couple days. The powder is hygroscopic, so it will absorb moisture, and this is not airtight. So I'm going to go ahead and use this as an intro for that video and attach it to the video, and I hope you find it useful. Thanks for watching.
So here's a simple beam scale for reloading. It's just like the beam scale that you might have used in science class in high school. Typically, I don't use a beam scale. I don't like analog stuff. I don't like dial indicating calipers. I don't even like reading hands on an analog clock, or I've even got spoiled with a digital speedometer. But it's important to know how to read your analog equipment. It's important to consider having analog equipment as a backup to the digital, because the digital is susceptible to failure from all kinds of different things. Static can fry them. Heaven forbid we have some sort of solar flare EMP or man-made EMP, and we're all back in the 19th century. But this is my simple Hornady digital scale. Comes with a weight to calibrate it. It weighs in grams and grains. It's got a little pan, put your powder in, and it's small. It's affordable. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space here on my reload bench. It's easy to read. The only thing I really didn't like about it up to this point is it times out. If you leave it on, it'll turn itself off, I think, after maybe about a minute. And that's kind of annoying when you're trying to carefully make a small batch of test ammunition and you're weighing each charge. Now, I didn't buy this first. I actually bought this first. This is an RCBS 505 scale. I bought it at a gun show used for $40, I believe. It was one of the first pieces of reload equipment I bought. I think I got this right after I got my Lyman turret press there. So I've had a few issues with it. I've had to recalibrate it, in which case you use lead shot from a shotgun shell, and you put it inside here. This opens up and you can actually calibrate it, and it's adjustable. You've got to have it on a nice level surface, etc., etc. It's a little bit harder to read. Also, sometimes when you go to move it into certain detents, it looks like it's there, but if you look at it up close, you just have to move it over a little bit and it knocks it right in there. So the only thing I really had to buy for it was ordered a cover to go over it. I think I got it from maybe Midway USA. That helps just keep the dust off of it because I rarely use it. Well, recently I was reloading some 5.56 NATO, and this digital scale just went haywire on me. Now, I've had a few instances in the past where I've tried to weigh it, weigh charges, check the weights on this reload bench, and the scale goes all over the place. And I move it over to the other reload bench, and it doesn't. And I thought it might have been the vent above, maybe blowing down air, and it's that sensitive. I thought maybe because it's up against the wall, maybe a little vibration from, I don't know, a passing truck, a passing train, something. I really wasn't too sure, but recently, even moving it over to the other table that isn't connected to anything except the floor, it's just been giving inconsistent load. So it's probably fried. It's about 3 years old. It's probably done. So the good thing is I've got my backup analog scale to go to, and I can continue reloading. I need to get a new digital scale, and I'll probably try to find something affordable. I think this was in the $30 range, so I'll probably get something between 20 and 40 bucks. And when I'm using my perfect powder measure here, and I throw a charge, I double check it against the scale. Now, for small batches, test loads, maybe some sort of special target load for hunting, that I will measure each charge. For plinking or that sort of thing, I'll measure so many of the first few coming off to make sure it stays consistent, and then after that I'll measure every 5th or every 10th one to make sure it hasn't gone out. It's a matter of preference if you want to weigh each charge. I know for reloading a whole lot of ammunition for target shooting on the weekend, and you got a progressive press, you're going to let the press do most of the work. How often you're going to check it, that's totally up to you. I'll give a quick example of how I check this on the beam scale. So the beam scale is already set to 23 grains, which is what I'm putting in this particular batch of ammunition. And I've got my Lee Perfect Powder Measure set up here, and I've already dialed it in. There's an adjustment here on the side. You can go back and forth with it. And when you dial it in, you want to throw so many charges, dump them back in, and then throw your test charge. And that way, if there's any inconsistencies there, it kind of straighten itself out. And you weigh it. If it's where you need it to be, you lock it in. If it isn't, you raise it or lower it to adjust. You throw it a few more times, dump it in there, and then you weigh it again until you get it just right, and then you lock it in. every so often it'll kind of go out, or the shape of the powder will kind of make it a little bit hard to get consistent weights, depending, because you're weighing it for actual weight, where it's throwing it for actual volume. So there's a little bit of science in there. All you got to do is, this one's already dialed in. I've already done what, 15, 16 with this, and it's good to go. So I just put the pan underneath here that's a little funnel shape. You can actually put the case right up there and dump it right into the case if you wanted to. Or you can dump it into a funnel. You put the pan up there, just raise the arm, lower the arm. Don't do it too quick, and don't have this too far down because it'll go flying everywhere. And then set it on your scale and move the camera. And you can see it's about level. If it's just a little above or a little below, I'm going to call that plus or minus a tenth of a grain for me. That's just fine. If you actually move this more towards the center too, you can change the reading a little bit. You can see there, it's nice and even. Then after that, I just take my funnel. I've got a couple different funnels. It's good to have a few different styles. I've got some metal ones, I've got plastic ones. This one's got an adapter on it. And I just take my 223 case that's already primed, and it's been sized, and actually it's been completely processed. So it's been decapped. I chamfered out the primer pocket. I tumbled it. I trimmed it, sized it, and I've even ran the neck through a Lee factory crimp die just to make sure that when I go to seat the bullet, it doesn't fall through. And that's pretty much what you're using a scale for. After that, I use this single stage press. This one's already got a powder charge in it. It's ready to go. Here's your Winchester 55 grain full metal jacket boat tail bullet. Just put it up in there. And this is why I run it through a factory crimp die first, is to kind of give that neck a little, make it a little bit tighter, because otherwise sometimes the bullet will fall through. Now this Hornady die has been adjusted and readjusted and readjusted. Sometimes you got to work it back and forth till you get it just right. And it's set not only to seat it to the right height, so we get an overall length that is within spec, but I've also got it set to crimp. And then we take our digital. At some point I'm going to get some dial indicating calipers as well. And we check it. 2.246, and your max is 2.260. So I'm going to call this good because most of mine have been right in that range. And then we're ready to go. So that's why I recommend having a beam scale as a backup in case your digital scale craps out. And at some point down the road, I will be getting some dial indicating calipers. I know how to use them, so why not have those as a backup as well?